and welcome to the latest episode of Two Halves, Two Innings Football. This episode is sponsored by Davis Optometrists. So if you're looking for sports vision, dry macular degeneration treatment, or treatment for dry eyes, then please check the guys out of Davis. The link will be in the bio. Now, I'm very privileged today to be joined by Alex, who's affiliated with many podcasts, one of which is storming up the Spotify charts, which is known as The Lab, and his main focus, his main passion, which is Tottenham Hotspurs. So, Rohit, if I was you, I will go.
I was thinking which
because there is no way we're going to talk about Arsenal because you've got two Manchester United fans, a Spurs fan. You are going to be right at the bottom of the pecking order.
But remember, Amit, I have the editing right, so I can cut down everything.
Oh shit! We didn't think that one through, did we? Welcome, Alex. How are you?
But welcome, Alex.
Welcome, Alex. Oh, nice. Sound effects too. Christ, it's been I wasn't expected. No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's I don't mind talking about Tottenham. I thought I was going to be happier talking about Tottenham in the 93rd minute. Maybe not quite as happy a minute later. But no, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Appreciate you letting me come on.
Let's hope you keep your top on. So you don't need to be taking it off early.
Well, look, actually, there's a number 9 there. Does that say Richarlison on it? I know it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. It says Gareth Bale. So we're all right.
The best number 9, isn't it? Yeah.
So we're right. So before we talk about the game, Alex, actually, I listened to the last Lab episode, and that was with Dan Kilpatrick from The Athletic, and I was really intrigued. Kind of, it's a great podcast. I was really intrigued by kind of some of the things and just a few questions, really. So. Again, just, we're kind of Manchester United, we've got Liverpool fan and Arsenal. So, a couple of questions from me, just your perception of Thomas the Frank Engine, as AJ kind of has nicknamed him. I mean, what I was interested in that, obviously you had a great end to last year by winning the Europa League, and that was the first trophy for Spurs in a long time. And it seems that the Spurs fans are very happy to get Thomas Frank in, but it seems to have come off the rails a little bit now. And from my understanding is, why are you surprised as Spurs fans when you know what his playing style was for Brentford? Or did you expect something different?
I might be a slight outlier because after about a month after the Chelsea game and in Postecoglou's first season, when it all kind of just derailed, I knew then that Postecoglou was not the guy. He was, and the longer it went on, the more animated I got. Now, I have a very long history on the various podcasts that we do. I've kind of sticking with the manager. I was AVB, ride or die. I was, everyone. Devastated when Poch went, devastated when Redknapp went. I form attachments to managers. And as much as I'm very big on the emotional part of the game, while we all enjoy football is not because, it's because it brings something out of you that nothing else in life does at certain times. And I thought that Postecoglou would be the perfect kind of guy for it, but he just really wasn't. And I found him almost a charlatan at the end of it. So when Frank came in, I think there was a big swathe of the Tottenham fan base that just wanted a grown-up back in the room. The post-game interviews were becoming more, everything was about Ange, and I don't think it was all his fault, and I think he had a lot of challenges, but I was just desperate for a grown-up. I want someone to be able to react to tactics that we are seeing from other clubs, from approaches that we're seeing from other teams, and reacting to that and adapting to that, rather than, well, this is how we play, away we go. And you mentioned about Frank's style, and then there was obviously, as you can imagine, a lot of discussion in the summer. But I can't really remember. I'm interested to see what his style actually is, because when you are a Brentford and you have the record against the top 6 teams that he had, which was really good, it came from him adapting every time. He played 6 or 7 different formations in his last season at Brentford. And so I don't think we really know what his style is. Now, there is some pragmatism there compared to Postecoglou, but quite frankly, anyone would be pragmatic compared to that man. So I think at the minute, it's more of a question of just muddling through whilst there is no Maddison, no Kulusevski, no Solanke, and the other injuries and restrictions that we've had, and we know there's work to do in January and in the summer, and Simmons not settling. So I think there's all sorts of things. If we'd have lost that on Saturday, if that had stayed 1-0, I'm happy to admit he would have lost a few people. He would have lost a decent chunk of people there. So, but this has always been the way at Tottenham. You know, I remember Pochettino's 4th or 5th game. We lost to Stoke at home, and it was toxic in that stadium. You know, if he'd have lost another couple games, it could have been curtains for him as well. I just think that's the nature of the beast at Tottenham. It's the type of fan base we are. When we're in love, you've got us, but you know you have to work hard to get us there.
It's a two-way relationship.
So my question, Alex, is then so Tottenham. You know, there's clubs that say they have an identity, and many clubs actually we don't know what their identity is. But I think one of the clubs that you can say their identity is known as is Tottenham. That they typically have that. You know, that attacking, flaring football. Now, I remember kind of the days of Jerry Francis when you had I think it was Jerry Francis when you had the famous five and you had Klinsmann.
Ozzy just before Francis. Ozzy Ardiles was that, yeah. Jerry Francis was the boring decade, yeah.
It was Ozzy. Yeah, I was trying to remember who it was. Yeah, that was it, Ozzy. And so Postecoglou seemed to fit that bill because he was very attacking. And probably, as you say, he was a bit too attacking. So for me, it kind of felt like he's gone back to that identity which you've kind of lost when you had Jose. You know, I mean, he's not attacking footballers; he's very pragmatic. So I was just really intrigued, really. But you know, as you said, you know, he's had a tough crack. You know, I don't know what's happening in North London, but just to make you feel better, Rohit, I'm talking about Arsenal here.
Thank God.
There seems to be a lot of injuries in North London. Arsenal have had their fair amount of injuries.
Whole of our forward line is injured. You know, so.
Between the both of you, could probably put out a first 11 of injured players.
Injured 11 FC.
Because this has been going on at Tottenham for probably 2.5 years now. You know, the injury, as much as I was not a fan of Postecoglou, particularly last season, the injuries he had to put up with was, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything of a squad decimated to that point. You know, when we had Dragerson and a 18-year-old Archie Gray playing centre-half against Liverpool with a 21-year-old reserve goalkeeper in, you know, it's remarkable. And one thing I would notice about on Saturday, obviously, United only had one senior player out. I think I'm right in thinking, AJ, in terms of
Martinez. Yeah,
I can't think of anyone else that was out.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, we've been very lucky this season, to be fair, with injuries, as apart from obviously Martinez, who's a long-standing injury from last season. But I know your feeling as well. I mean, under the days of Ten Hag, when pretty much we had 9 or 10 injuries, where we were playing with a makeshift back four every single game, it was horrible to be watching. You know, you didn't know what team would be put out. And I think injuries are obviously a natural part of the game. But there is some kind of studies and some science to back up that usually like in December time. There's a lot of players that do get injured in a lot of the squads just because of workload, because of the way that the body's having to go through different fixtures and even with the weather. But I want to ask you, obviously, just regards to Tottenham. I think obviously when it came to Ange and obviously winning the Europa League final, and we can probably safe to say as both Man United and Tottenham fans that probably wasn't the best spectacle to kind of see. Probably kind of gave some memories of the Liverpool and Tottenham Champions League final, which again was kind of a bit of a one moment type of penalty incident, which again is debatable. But do you think that maybe Tottenham maybe struggled because of the season now is because of the transfer market, that you didn't really get the players that Thomas Frank really wanted? And obviously the key thing from United players, United fan like myself, is Mbeumo. He was a big target for Tottenham, and maybe the lack of the summer transfer window being a success for you guys might have also contributed to your play style and the aura around the stadium. I was listening to your 100%. Podcast, sorry to be a bit long. I listened to your last episode with Dan Kilpatrick, like Amit said, and also with I think it was Billy that came on the episode before. And he was talking about how to improve the stadium, the atmosphere in the stadium. Maybe having a singing section. I know you guys were talking about having a block. And interestingly, I actually went to Spurs Stadium in 2023 in the August where you beat us 2-0. And that was Andrew's first home win. And I thought to myself, it was a beautiful stadium. But the atmosphere as well, it kind of felt like people were kind of passive in the support. It didn't feel like the chants were all there. The support was all in unison. As somewhere like Old Trafford or even like Anfield on a Champions League night. So what do you guys feel about the aura in the stadium atmosphere?
I think stadium and atmosphere within British stadiums now, I think it's a really interesting point. When we first started the original podcast, we were very kind of young. We started the podcast because we would listen to other Tottenham podcasts, and it was just old dudes moaning about Tottenham for an hour and a half.
Now you've got young dudes moaning about
Tottenham. Yeah, right. But we were young, and we were like, "That's not the Tottenham that we experience. We go every week. Like we all, we don't go to Spurs in our colours. Well, we get dressed up like we're going out for a night out. We meet up before. We sit in the cafe. We have some dinner. We have some drinks. We hang out with our friends. Like the football's the second. Like that's the day. If we win, great. But this football was the secondary part, and that was why we started it, because we were like, that's not the Tottenham, the match day experience that we feel. And look, at White Hart Lane, people will kind of hark back to it now, but there were awful times at White Hart Lane. It was horrible, toxic times in there in certain games, and it's been the same for the stadium. And it's interesting you mentioned the United 2-0 in Ange's first home game. And I wonder how it felt in there to an away fan. But I was there that day, and I thought the atmosphere was great. And then afterwards, like it was the whole "I'm loving Ange" instead, and Robbie Williams, like it was great. And so what it comes down to is atmosphere is always winning football matches solves a hell of a lot of problems.
It does.
And that can fix atmosphere. It can
everything.
Fix almost anything.
You can see that with Arsenal at the moment.
Yeah.
It can do anything. We said and my point was going to be, when we started the podcast, part of our kind of rally against modern football is we started an organisation called 1882, and I found an old. I'll forward it to you guys to read, but I found an old Daily Mail article that specified it. So what we would do is we contacted the club, and we said, look, we want to have a kind of singing section or whatever.
Yeah, singing stand.
Now Daniel Levy's gone, things might change. But back then, Daniel Levy is not a big fan of Tottenham fans. Rightly so, you might say, because he gets a hell of a lot of grief. But
he does,
we had to fight tooth and nail to get it. But we started it originally. We would go and watch the youth games. So we turned up at Underhill for a Tottenham Arsenal under 18s match, and we brought 500 people, and we stood in Underhill at Underhill Stadium, and we sang like it was the first team, celebrated like it was the first team. They won and all that. So this was a young Harry Kane, Tom Carroll, Carl Walker-Peters, Andres Townsend. We're all playing in that game. So that's how it started, and then we started taking that to the Europa League games when we first got back into the Europa League. So we would go in what was called Block J. They would stick us right up in the gods, like on the West Stand, and we would just go and sing, and we'd take 200, 300, 400 people. And if you ever see the Lamela Rabona goal, not the one against Arsenal, but he scored one against, I can't remember who it was, some team I can't pronounce from Europe. And he scores this Rabona from the edge of the box. And you'll see all the back row, where it's all sporadic, where they couldn't sell the tickets. That whole block behind it was all 1882, this organisation that we'd done. Yeah. So we were always very thin about the atmosphere. Then obviously when the new stadium came in, it was impossible to get tickets, like us all sat together, and it still is. And there's been a couple of organisations called Change for Tottenham, at THFC Flags, and forgive me, I forget the name of the other organisation, but they've tried to work with the club. And actually before the Chelsea game, there was actually some time put aside where they would do this light show, and then they said, look, you're going to have 15 minutes where we don't put any music on, nothing, over to you, to the fans, because that's what we'd asked for. It turned out to be a bit of a damp squib, which is probably why the game was just so awful afterwards as well. But no, I feel you. It's new stadiums are tricky. I think we've managed it relatively well. But winning football matches changed everything. Like the atmosphere sounded on Saturday against United, it wasn't amazing. Suddenly, when you go 2-1 up with a minute to go, the place is rocking. So it varies.
Sorry, I was just going to say. That's one critique. Sorry, I was going to say, because United were leading in that game. If we focus on the game, it was kind of a similar goal that we scored, that Chelsea scored the week before, where it was a lapse of concentration. I think it was Porro that gave the ball away or smacked it straight at Fernandes. Wasn't clear in the box. And United managed to obviously get an in-swinging cross from Ahmad into Mbeumo. Obviously with Chelsea, I think they managed just to square the ball, and it landed quite nicely to João Pedro and he got the goal. So is there a bit of some defensive fragility in that back four with Thomas Frank, and kind of where would you like to see them improvements? Because obviously, they're good players. Van had an amazing goal in midweek, and obviously with Porro and Romero, he's a bit of a funny one. Romero, he kind of reminds me a lot like Marcus Rojo from United, or even Eric Bailly, where they would have a cracking game. They would put some challenges in, but then you'd kind of think, why are you sliding around like Eddie from Tekken? You need to stay on your feet, mate. Like, honestly.
I'll take issue with you comparing Christian Romero to those two. Christian Romero is... he's just such a level above. It's difficult for people who don't watch him every week, because I hear Romero get an awful lot of stick. I can't tell you what a Rolls Royce he is. And my only criticism is, the problem is there are other players around him who are not as good at him. There are midfielders that are not as good at some of the progressive passing as he is. And I think he just gets frustrated, trying to like, right, well, if you can't do it, I'll do it myself. But no, the defensive side of things, to your point, AJ, is after the first 4 or 5 games with Thomas Frank, I was like, I don't think we're ever going to concede a goal ever again, because this is brilliant. It's just silly individual errors. Like, so that one on Saturday, perhaps I don't know what Pap Sarr is usually doing, because he's one of the more composed players, and he kind of just whacks it off Van der Ven, and then we can't clear the second lines, and I think it wasn't great. And then the equaliser, I have some issues with Brennan Johnson, which I struggled to articulate, because he won us a trophy and gave me one of the best nights of my entire life. But
it was a Luke Shaw on goal, by the way.
Yeah, it was just how he's lost that man, I don't know. But
he doesn't care.
Yeah, so I just there are some defensive stuff, and there's work to be done in the transfer market. We know that we are in desperate need of one more fullback. Destiny Udogie, I think, is fantastic, but not as good defensively as Spence. But then when Spence plays defensively, he has to come inside because he's playing on his wrong side. Porro's great, but then there's no other right back. So there is some work to do in the transfer window. Mbeumo, I think, there's no secret that we wanted Mbeumo, and for the length of time that we've been doing, we do hear whispers from certain people within the club, and we get a little bit of, ITK is usually kind of not worth the paper it's written on, but we hear bits and pieces. And the word on Mbeumo was that originally he always wanted to go to United, United fan, all the rest of it, wanted to go there. But there was a period of about 3 weeks where, when Frank had first come into Tottenham, where he'd gone, okay, this United thing could stand. Brentford might actually put their foot down now. Let's have a chat. And I think it was Tottenham kind of, the hierarchy, but it still were in the midst of the Morgan Gibbs White stuff, and kind of let the ball go. But it's a shame, because he is exactly, and it's why we went so hard on Savinho and didn't get him either. But that left-hand side is a problem for Tottenham, and Mbeumo would have been perfect.
What is it?
Yeah.
Eze,
yeah. The Eze, I won't lie to you. I was gutted about when Eze went to Arsenal. I couldn't believe. I felt like just giving up on football. But then seeing the way he was, like, he's obviously just a massive Arsenal fan. I'm so glad he didn't come to us now.
That's what I was thinking. Why he actually? I think I was quite happy to see him back at Arsenal. I think because if you see, he's a boyhood Arsenal fan. Going to Spurs or Arsenal, and then he had to actually ring back to Arsenal to say, "Listen, if you still want me, I want to come." So they made it happen. I mean, I'm glad that I don't know if his full heart would have been there at Spurs either, but obviously professional player, they have to play. Like Darren Bent played for Spurs as well, and then it happens. Yeah,
it'll be interesting. I think we've ended. He hasn't had the best start, and I don't know what you guys think from as a third party looking in. I think Simmons will be fine.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
I think we've ended up with the player with the higher ceiling than Eze with Simmons. Not right now, but I think there's a higher ceiling there.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying in higher ceiling of like Romero and Mickey Van are better than Saliba and Gabriel. What's your opinion on that?
I got to be honest, I really, really like Saliba. I'm not as hot on Gabriel as other people are, but I really like Saliba.
Yeah, he's good.
I think that's probably if Van Dijk. Let's take Van Dijk as red, and he will kind of wane as he gets slightly older. But I think the 4 best centre halves in the country are in North London right now.
Ooh.
In those 4,
There's a big shout.
I don't see. I really don't. Mark Gahey maybe.
Yeah.
Ruben Diaz perhaps, yeah. But
if you see these centre back, there's always partnerships, right? So if you have to see, because one person can't win anything, one person can't defend, it's always a team effort, right? So as a unit, together as a partnership, do you think North London has the best partnerships, 2 best partnerships in the Premier League this year?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Alex, are you okay?
Well, you're agreeing with an Arsenal fan.
Arsenal. Listen, you don't have to be nice to us. You can just say why you feel.
No, hey, look,
I think Saliba and Gabriel are better than Romero and Mickey Van der Ven.
Well, you would
I
say
don't
at
think
the
there's
moment.
much in it, but
The stats don't lie at the moment, do they?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't particularly care. I just need someone or
I'm with you.
something
Who gives
to
a shit?
stop. Like, I don't care how it happens. I don't care if it's like by fraud, cheating, whatever. But I can't. We need you. Yeah, we need Man City to click into gear, and hopefully by today.
I think they already.
Well, they did, 3-0 against Liverpool.
But then again, referees help, tonight.
But, Alex, talking about that, I suppose you're saying that because you don't want Arsenal to win the league. Now,
I don't want Arsenal to do anything ever.
Anything good. So
I think this is the difference, isn't it? This is a difference. Sorry, this is a difference, isn't it? I don't know if I saw a stat somewhere that Spurs have lost more home games than Arsenal. The Arsenal Stadium opened in 2019 and Spurs last 5 or 6 years. So, that's the thing. Because I don't see that how the rivalry is at the moment, right? We have a big game coming up after the international break, and looking at Spurs away record, I think your away record is better than home record at the moment.
Oh, away record. We've only lost. I think we've lost. We've lost. I think
you haven't lost. I think one game. Okay, there you go. So it will be an interesting game to see. But coming back to the home record, you lost more games than Arsenal.
Yeah, I think the home record is an issue. Now, a big chunk of that obviously was Postecoglou, and I've already expressed my thoughts on him. What I think's happening with Thomas Frank is, I think we're obviously missing a huge amount of creativity. There's no Maddison, there's no Kulusevski, there's no Solanke. Richarlison, as much as I quite like him, he's not up to it. Matisse Tell's young, Simmons hasn't settled in yet, so it's difficult, right? Odebear's young. It's a difficult situation going forward. And I think what's happening is, most competent teams now are coming to White Hart Lane and just sitting there and go, okay, we'll break us down. And we can't do it. I put in our WhatsApp group with about 25 minutes to go on Saturday. I was like, we got no chance. Like, I've got no faith in us creating enough chances to be able to score 2 actual goals. Like, we'll play some nice horseshoe football around the edge of the box, and we'll work it, and we'll work patterns, and we'll that type of stuff. But I just can't see it, and obviously, clearly, I was wrong. But I think that's what's happening. And away from home, obviously, teams come onto you a little bit more, and I just think it's suiting us a little bit more. That will change over time. So I've got no issue with my issue with and like I said, the derby is always completely different. Yeah, we've gone into games before where we've been the big dog, and we've been like, finally, this is it. Like, we haven't lost for 4 months, and Arsenal have got every player injured, and they're on a real run and can't do anything, and then we end up losing like 5-2. Like, that just happens, and I hate that. I hate this game. I dread it all year, regardless of who's in form. I'd rather go into it in the state we are in than the state you're in, because the only time we've ever got results
expectations
is when
are
we've
low.
been, And is it at the Emirates?
Emirates,
It's at the Emirates.
I mean, we never win there anyway, like, ever. So
No, don't say that. You need to win there. We're rooting for you,
well,
Alex. Come
and I
on,
think- I think
These
we've
two,
probably
these
got a
two are
chance of
rooting
it,
for
but
Spurs win, Alex.
I just don't have any expectations.
I'm rooting for a good
It makes
game.
me feel sick. Yeah.
So,
It makes
I
me
mean,
feel sick.
the point I was trying to make was, Alex, obviously I understand your hatred for Arsenal fans, but I mean, I wouldn't say I hate Arsenal, but I mean, they're just this annoying set of fans, and I don't know what it is. I just like the fans are just so annoying. It's like they have a little bit of success, and they just gloat like anything, and it's
But I mean,
something
that's
I can't
every
believe
fan.
it.
Every fan in the world.
Nah,
do
honestly,
that,
it's Arsenal
right?
fans more than anyone.
No.
I can
I mean,
guarantee.
you know, following the United fans. You should follow United fans.
We have humility, okay? We've been through depression. We've been through the dark ages.
We've been worse than
okay?
that, mate. We've
No.
been worse than that. Yeah.
The only thing that
Can I
you have
just
bad, Rohit,
say,
is Bayern Munich coming to your house.
Neither of you have got any right to talk about down bad times, all right? So, you know, I say to my United friends now, and I have actually, it's gone on longer than I thought, but let's say after the Moyes period, say like when Van Gaal went, and it was like, blimey, this is 2-3 managers we're getting through now. I was saying to my Man United friends, like I know it's difficult because obviously you're just used to unparalleled success, but this is what football is. Like it's cyclical.
It's true.
And
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you're going to have these times. You know, Arsenal, to your point about the Arsenal fan base, why Arsenal was a bit of a unique channel. I try and take my bias away, but Arsenal had that period of success at the beginning of the social media era, right? It's where AFTV came from. Now, I've known Robbie a long time, and Robbie is actually a really nice guy. I really, really get on with Robbie. And he identified a gap in the market, but what it has, and, you know, good luck to him, fantastic. But what it has done, and AFTV was the first to do this, and Mark Goldbridge was probably not too far behind, but what AFTV did is it opened that type of fan debate. And every time you think of fan cams, online social media fans, that, you know, content creating, whether it's troops, you know, whoever.
Yeah, troops, yeah.
Like, they're the first ones that you think of. So it's planted in your brain. Look, and people like Ty, like, don't help themselves. Again, you know, I've met and worked actually with quite a lot of the Arsenal fan TVs, and most of them, actually, probably it's only Robbie, but, you know, Robbie's really, really nice. But that's what's happened. But they all have them. Like, and then it's the other like Liverpool get all sorts of grief for like Anfield agenda and those guys. You know, Mark Goldbridge with United stand.
But his United fan talks more about Arsenal these days. So talking about
But you're right. I just think that's the way that football is. I think, unfortunately, not unfortunately, because I do think there is something different, fundamentally different about Arsenal fans, particularly Arsenal fans who live in North London. But they were the first kind of social media generation type fan, and it attracts then a certain type of, you know, of fan base, you know. And United stand is the same. I'm sure as United fans, you know, I'm sure you've seen or watched, you know, Mark and that type of stuff. But really, what he's completely changed the game. He's got Bundesliga football rights on an internet channel now.
Yep,
it's that is land. That's as big. People might not recognize it right now, but I promise you that, in the landscape of football media, in terms of what you guys do with this podcast, what we do, what other people will do content creation wise, Mark getting those rights to those games is going to be as big a sea change in this sport in terms of content as when Sky first got the Premier League. Now, that might sound daft, but that is the way that it's going. And that's why fan bases now, like, everyone's saying, well, Arsenal will work. It basically, instead of who's the worst in a stadium or the meanest or causes the most trouble, now it's who's the most annoying online, who's the ones with the worst Twitter accounts. You know, and that's how football fan base has gone now, and it's just the way it is.
I agree with you.
Alex, you articulated that very well. Rohit, despite being an Arsenal fan, you know I love you, man.
You know, mate, it's fine.
So,
but I will say, just on point of
question I've got.
Okay.
Go.
No, what I was going to say to Alex, as well,
Alex,
he hit the nail on the head. Sorry, I'll just... one thing I wanted to ask as well is... sorry. This is the problem with doing this four-way thing. But Alex, I wanted to ask, I think you hit the nail on the head with people like Mark Goldbridge and the way that the sport is going. It happened with gaming, where people in the younger generation, this, you know, YouTube generation, the Gen Zs, they don't particularly actually want to play games. They want to watch people commentate on games. And you might be having this kind of, foresight into fans now wanting to actually see more reaction and watch live with, these content creators. And it just adds that element of maybe that human element, that kind of interactiveness and that kind of ability to be more entertained, because maybe the football itself over 90 minutes is not as enjoyable as it was back in the Barclays Premier League days of 2002 to 2006-07, where it was more enjoyable and you had more loyal, hardcore football fans. People are a bit more passive and just want to see the content in the living room, have a screen, have the football on, but then also have someone commentate over it. Somebody like Expressions Oozing, I don't know if you know of him, but he's a big Tottenham. I love his metaphors. I think they're absolutely fantastic when I watch his reaction videos. And that's the way that maybe a lot of more, fans are engaging into the sport of like football and cricket as well, and other type of sports as well around the world. So I think, you made an excellent point there about where the future of content creating, and obviously with football as well, how it's going to go. So is that going to then maybe allude to your factor that the stadium atmosphere is maybe kind of coming down a little bit as well, because the fans are now just all spread and it's more fashion to come to a football stadium just for the Instagram likes, for the pics, as opposed to actually supporting the team?
There might be some of that. I also think pricing is a big thing. In our early days of that,
it's the most expensive. Is it Tottenham's the most expensive to go to? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Tottenham, Arsenal, and Fulham, aren't they? The three
very expensive.
Most. But Arsenal have as much as our issue at Tottenham is that why are we paying this? This amount.
Well, you pay for the
stadium. If we're winning stuff and competing and spending money and missing out or just missing out or whatever. That I could go in for a whole monotribe with that, but I think the pricing of football these days adds to the atmosphere because it facilitates a tourism type environment, and it prices out a younger generation who tend to be the more noisier, the more raucous, that type of stuff, and that's an issue. The FSA have worked fantastically well to keep the pressure on the 20s plenty and the £30 away ticket initiatives, that type of stuff. But the pricing, and then I just think the general what's the word, I sound old now, I mean I'm 38, but content changes and culture changes about how you just enjoy things, like having Wi-Fi in a stadium. My dad would have been like, why do you need Wi-Fi?
Well, why do you need this?
And so I just think that's nature of the change. And like you said with gaming, I just think taste change as technology changes. Like I've got a 9-year-old daughter who, she's got about 4,000 dolls and babies in her bedroom that she could play with. But she spends just as much time watching other kids play with the same dolls on YouTube and all the rest of it. I just, I think that's just the nature of the beast.
Exactly. It's how it is at the moment, ecosystem.
Yeah, and regarding price, Alex, so I think there's two key things there. So, traditionally football was seen as the working man's sport, but the way it is now, the way pricing is, it's very difficult for someone who's on minimum wage to go, because it's not just about getting to the game, it's about the transport. While you're at the game, having a pint, having a burger and chips or whatever, that all kind of adds up. And the thing I was going to say is that, and Roy, it'd be interesting in your take as well regarding Arsenal, is that with these new stadiums, as they're much bigger, as you said, as you kind of alluded Instagram, but more tourists are coming to these places to just kind of, get their photo and be part of that. I've seen that at kind of Manchester United, that, the last few games I've been to, there's quite a large Chinese kind of contingent, when they come to Manchester, they want to kind of go to Old Trafford. And again, these are people who are experiencing the game, not because they're fans of Manchester, or they might be, but they're experiencing the game because that's something to tick off their bucket list. So I think that kind of contributes to that. And I mean, I don't know what the stats are, is it? But even like, it's still going to be a decent percentage of people that who are going to these games and who can afford to go to these games.
100%. I mean, we've probably maybe, I say exposed to it because it sounds like a horrible, because it's not, because I've got absolutely nothing against it per se, because I've done it. I've gone to America. I've gone to, with my previous companies that I've worked for. I've gone to NFL games and that type of stuff where I'm like, I ain't got a dog in the fight here. But we've probably seen it maybe a bit more most because the contingent of Koreans that we've had at White Hart Lane for the last decade, because of
Son,
Decent.
yeah.
Even Son.
Yeah.
is, it's substantial. Now, as it happens, I haven't seen a huge amount of that drop since Sonny left this year, and I think that's great
good.
because that means, it probably has, but it doesn't seem it as much. But that's been a huge contingent of people that are coming to London and will watch Sonny, and I'm sure it's part of why LA, still paid some money for him, even though we probably would have let him go for free. Because they know that the commercial opportunity is there. And I think, so tourism in football is a thing. It's not going away.
Yes.
And what the clubs have to do is they have to work with groups like we have at Tottenham who, get up off their arse and, can't, instead of just moaning, the stadium's not as good anymore. They have formed initiatives and movements to try and help with that. And since Daniel Levy has left, already we have seen from... and you might have seen this before with Vinay Venkatesan, obviously, who was at Arsenal previously.
He was at Arsenal,
everyone who I've spoke to about Vinay has been, he was very kind of fan kind of orientated, and we're already starting to see that because some of the initiatives that have not come in, but at least the conversations being had with those fan movement groups are visible now.
Yeah,
where they weren't before.
Yep, he did the same at Arsenal as well when we were going through a rough patch as well with Emery and before that, right? So he did start all those fan supporter groups coming in, have a face-to-face conversations rather than just online or put a statement through. I think there's a big difference, isn't it? When you know there's someone listening to us as fans, it gives a little bit of confidence as well as fans. Okay, there's someone who's there to listening. They may do something, they may not do it, but at least you have kind of a door open to have conversations.
It's interesting because I think we've all three clubs here, Spurs there's a huge Enoch out contingent, which has died down a smidge now because we're going to see, well, okay, they're obviously not going to sell. We've obviously, already had a couple of approaches since, and I think that's probably why Daniel Levy was moved on. And so it's now we're going to see the Lewis family actually have a go. So everyone's kind of waiting to see what happens there. Obviously, Arsenal had their issues with the Cronkies, and this is what we're hoping will follow the same route now, where it's the same owners. You haven't got to go through that risk of a whole new ownership and all the rest of it, but maybe being taken in a different direction by a different part of that ownership. And then obviously, you guys have got the Glazers with Ineos and stuff. I mean, I'd be interested to see what you guys feel about that now.
Don't say their names to us, honestly. I got excited when there was a news report. I don't know if it was fake, but there was like a Dubai contingent or a group from the UAE that was that they were going to maybe bid for it and maybe offer the 6 billion, however much. But with obviously with Ineos, I have seen some improvements in terms of the structure, and I think Amit was talking to about the interview. I think it was Joseph Wilcox that you said.
Jason Wilcox,
Joseph Wilcox, about just how Carrington, the ethos of the team, how to kind of exclude outside noise, focus on the team itself. And I think United did well this summer transfer window in terms of having Premier League proven players like Cunha and Mbeumo. Obviously with Sesko, he's still got to kind of find his feet. But otherwise, I think it's been quite good for United in their transfer window.
You've reminded me of a point I was going to ask you, actually. Isn't it amazing that, obviously that Europa League final was kind of deemed as, the loser, as
death of United,
the absolute doldrums. You had Jim Ratcliffe a month before saying, United would go bankrupt in November if we hadn't made these cuts and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And yet we win it. You lose it. We sack our manager. And you guys have spent 150 million quid before we'd even got one through the door. And I remember thinking just what's going on here? And that was a bit, and that in a nutshell is where the frustration with Daniel Levy laid. And it's everyone, there's so many people outside the club that I would always hear I don't know what you're moaning about. He's just built you this incredible stadium. When you took over, you were, in the midst of, Jerry moving from Jerry Francis to Glenn Hoddle just as Sol Campbell was leaving you, and you hadn't been in Europe for God knows how long. And whilst it's true that he has elevated the level of where Tottenham's base is, they got to a point where he either couldn't or wouldn't push any further now. That was enough. If we can get Champions League every couple of years, that's kind of enough. And if we win something, fine. And that's where the difference is. I think what's happened with United under the Glazers was that. And obviously that can't happen at United because United is an absolutely colossal football club. And the previous company I worked with did some commercial dealings with Manchester United, and I was lucky to kind of see bits and pieces from the inside. People have no idea how big that club is. It is.
Oh, you was going to take me to that game. You was going to take me to the last game before COVID. So it was the Manchester derby, and I think Manchester United beat Man City 2-0, and then literally that was the last game before COVID. So Alex invited me to that game.
Yeah,
but
Scott McTominay last minute goal.
I remember that.
Yeah,
I think Scott.
But it's humongous, and like when you see the revenues that gets brought in by Manchester United compared to the rest of the six, so they would show us like these top six, and Tottenham and Man City would be towards the bottom because obviously Man City are new money, and Tottenham have still. Although the legacy is there in terms of being all the way through the Premier League, but it's still low. But even the gap from Manchester United to Liverpool, it's humongous. Like so that's why it can't happen there, and why eventually Manchester United will become the powerhouse of English football again. Like it's unavoidable. It might take another 10 years, but it will happen because it can't not with the revenue there.
So quickly, there's a couple points I want to pick on there, Alex. Is so United? I mean, Ineos. I mean, so Jim is a United fan, so I think that's always a good position to start. Although he was going to buy Chelsea before, but that's just he's a businessman. Ineos themselves, I don't think they've had much success in sport. I think Nice, that's not gone very well. Although the bringing in Sir Dave Brailsford, he's the one who talks about marginal gains and really kind of Sir Clive Woodward raves about him. With the work that they've done together when they were part of the Olympics team. So, I think there's some good things that are happening. I mean, I myself was not a big fan of Amrin. And once things changed, I asked a question on our podcast, what's changed? And Roy made a brilliant point. He felt the change was when Sir Jim came out and said that Amrin's in for another 2 years. Now, when I heard that, I literally had to do a video because I was like, oh my God, what the hell? Another 2 years of this shit. But, I think it's probably true because the players know now that, I mean, it was obvious that they supported him because they've allowed him to get rid of the deadwood or perceived deadwood, such as Rashford, Garnacho, etc., Anthony. And, so he's creating his playing style, whether you agree with it or not. And I think Rohit really made a valid point that, So Jim come in, and I know chairman come out all the time say, that they support the managers, but if he's coming at that, and I think the proof is in the pudding that the support that he's given they've given the manager in terms of the signings that they've made and the players that he's allowed to go, it seems pretty obvious that they're behind his project. That the players thought, well, we can't keep down in our tools. We've got to just get on with it now because otherwise we will be out to the door like the others have been out.
Yeah, I think. I like Amrin. I like the way he talks. I like the way he communicates.
Yeah, I like the way he talks. Yeah.
I'm a bit. I'm not massively convinced. Like some of his things when he's on the bench, like the whole not looking at penalties thing and the penalty shoot, that would wind me up.
But it could be superstitious, though. I mean,
I get it.
So when we're watching cricket,
we are very superstitious.
When we're watching cricket,
yeah,
because cricket's our kind of our real love. Honestly, if India are batting really well, we will not move. So we went to Adelaide in the Cricket World Cup in 2015 and
World Cup,
we were dying for a piss. We held up because India were playing so well against Pakistan. We literally did not move for 4 hours. Oh, honestly.
I can't come. I'll be honest with you. Cricket kind of passes me by a little bit, but
come join us on the cricket podcast. We'll win you over.
Yeah. So I mean,
we'll have you take on the Ashes.
I get the superstition part of it, but also it would just wind me up. But I think we saw it with Arteta to a degree. My only thinking is, and people try and compare it to Arteta, like stick with them, and obviously look where Arsenal are now. My first thing would be Arsenal still haven't won a trophy. The second thing would be I don't know what Mikel Arteta's style is, other than
set pieces.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing, right? That's the thing.
But what I will say, bro, is
over
the last 3 years, as Arsenal have started coming second and lots of things, is. I wouldn't. Would you say Arsenal are a counter-attacking team? No. Would you say they're a possession-based team? Maybe sometimes. Are they a kind of press sort of team? a bit more now, but they weren't before. So I think that he hasn't got a particular style. He's worked with players that have got players who have come available and then made a system. The squad's great, right? Where I think Amram is the other way around, where he has a very set way that he wants to do things. Same with Postecoglou, same with probably Pep. Areola's probably another one. Eddie Howe to a lesser degree, but these are the guys that where you have to give them time to find out whether they're right or wrong. Now they might be a pup, and that might be the case. Amram might be a pup. It might be just it's not going to work here in this league with the players he has. He can't get his message across. He's too young. Whatever, right?
Yep.
But you need to make those are the ones where you have to give it time. Like I'm amazed Arteta got the time he did because I couldn't see what the style was and all the rest of it. And it's worked out, but hopefully, nothing will happen again this year, and he'll have to go because Arsenal fans.
Well, it will happen.
But that's where I think
it will
the
happen,
difference
Alex.
is.
But this is again, I always feel right. Style is the win. End of the day, you have to win the games. You have to play the opposition as well. How they set up, and you need to make your strategy based on that to say how can we win, right? And depending on the players we have, you want NJ out because he was playing the same style. He was playing the same styles. You say no, NJ out. We were losing games. You guys were losing games. Say no, we want him. Why? Because he wasn't changing. What's the point of a style when you are not winning the games? You need to win the games. Not everyone is Pep, right? He's genius in my view, right? Not everyone is Pep, and not everyone can buy 100 million players every year, every transfer window, right?
Like you do.
We only won
like
one, right?
they did, yeah.
Yeah, we only bought one for the last 5 years. So that's what I'm saying. So it's the building up the squad, and then obviously injuries didn't help either, right? So Saliba got injured, Saka got injured, Odegaard got injured. So even last night games when we drew 2-2, I could feel like players were knackered. So you have to play sometimes situations. I think that's why he's different. And to be honest, it's his first job as well. Mika's first job. And for his first job, I think he's doing brilliant.
Look, there's no denying the steps that you've taken. Look, what I find quite different though is, and maybe this is, and every fan thinks this about their club, right? But when Spurs were finishing second to like the Leicesters, when we finished, missed out on
third,
the Chelsea
third,
the following year, that type of stuff. Everyone was like, well, it doesn't, and you had Dele Alli and Ericsson and Dembele and Kane,
Alderweireld,
Danny Rose, Kyle Walker. Yeah. Everyone was like, well, it's great. Yeah, you can get to your Champions League finals. You can finish second. You can be the best team in a whole calendar year and get the most points, but you haven't won anything. It's typical Tottenham. We don't win anything. But yeah, Arsenal don't seem to get that. They are now, but they don't seem to get that. And I think if he gets to the end of this period, this season, and he doesn't win anything again, the argument will be, well, what do you do now? Because he won't stay. We talked about fan bases earlier. The pressure from Arsenal fan base, like, it will just happen. I'm afraid it just will.
I think it will happen because expectations are there, right? Especially this year when we bought so many players now.
So what I'm saying is, sorry, just to finish that point. What I'm saying is that I think and Amram might be that person, and Frank might be this person as well. But all three of these guys might be the man before the man. The man before the man that comes along that actually gets the job done. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I agree on one point on that. But then again, it's like, you have to see the context as well. Like, say half of our players are injured and we still made it to the second and we're competing till the end. That's still good context to take it forward. I know there's a pressure now to win something. Could be a League Cup, could be a FA Cup, could be anything. But I think this is why Arsenal bought so many players as backups. But I think, again, we have to see at the end of the context. We have to see it. I mean, Liverpool, when Van Dijk got injured, they couldn't even win the league. They couldn't even win the games. With just one player injured. Rodri got injured last year for City. They were like behind. They were third.
Yeah. So, it's a great point. Yeah. But you've also just said a minute ago, the result is the style.
No, I mean results
Yeah,
because
exactly.
they could not win the game. We could not win the game because
That's fine.
because of
But then
injuries. Yeah.
The trophy has to be the result now. Doesn't matter whether you get injuries or whatever. now.
Yes, end game is the trophies. You know, for any
I-
manager, for any club, end game is the trophies. You have to win the trophies. Yeah.
Well, especially our clubs, I think, we with all due respect to other clubs in the Premier League, we are typically one of the part of the big six, along with kind of Liverpool and Chelsea and Man City. So, we should be, traditionally competing. But just quickly to your point, Alex, you said about the manager and have a style. Do you not think that's good management from Arteta, though, that he's got big balls in his first job, rather than going in there, having been under the influence of Pep, because I think he was Pep's number 2 at Man City?
Yeah, number 2. Yeah,
He had a role. He had a role at Man City. Rather than going, I'm going to go Pep false 9 and all this stuff, he went in there, looked at his players and says, okay, I'll look at what players I got and then build my system around that. Do you not think that's actually better management compared to what Amrin and maybe Frank have done? And for someone in their first job,
like I said, you can't deny the strides that Arsenal have taken, and why you can't that is because Pochettino essentially did the same thing with Tottenham. There was a period of time, there was a 2.5-3 year period where we were the only kind of we were the only ones that ran it with Leicester. We were the only ones that ran it with Chelsea. That Leicester season will never happen again. And the that Chelsea season, after they lost to Arsenal at the Emirates, they then didn't
lose
another game. I don't think that doesn't happen. So it's just so typical Tottenham that those would be the 2 years where we were actually really good. But that management, to your point in terms of managing with what you've got, absolutely. Look, there's absolutely no way around it. He has done better than I ever thought he would do. Where my issue is now that he has got a foot, the squad is probably the best squad in the league.
Yep.
Now, if I was an Arsenal fan, get this season out of the way. You've got to win that Premier League. Because if you don't, if you don't, then that's it done anyway, and that's just the nature of football. I'm afraid that's just the way it is. But if they do win it, then the pressure will be now is I want to win it nicely now. I want to win it with some style now. I don't want set pieces making up 60% of the goal. That is what will happen next from the Arsenal fan base. Mainly because Arsenal were a bit like that, but also that's what happens with every fan base. You look at West Ham, going from David Moyes wanting to then try and play a different brand of football. Bournemouth did it to a degree when they let Gary O'Neill go, and have got very lucky with Andre Areola, who I think is unbelievably good. And the same with all sorts of clubs where they have some success by doing it the kind of ugly way and just getting it done. Forest this year, exactly the same thing.
Exactly,
get rid of Nuno and bring in Ange, and then it doesn't always work. So to your point, I think he's done a clearly a fantastic job. But still, this season will define it.
And I think it's not only on the pitch; it's actually behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, I was going to
say changed the whole culture basically.
Oh, but I mean, he is so Brent.
It's about the results.
He is so David Brent, Mikel Arteta. I can't get over it. Having the dog. Well, they got a dog called Win, haven't they?
They got a dog called Win.
Win, yeah.
Win, yeah.
Honestly, I can't with him.
No, but then again, I'm saying as a life coach, he's actually very good. He's actually very good. Because this is what all the things on the documentary they shown on Amazon, all the bulb thing and everything. That's what we do with teams as well.
Edison connected.
Yeah, but that's what we do with teams as well. To show them sometimes the message doesn't go across. You have to try different things to put across the message, what the message is, and what he did with Aubameyang as well, right? Listen, that doesn't happen here. Yeah. I don't care. You are my captain. I don't care. You're my best player. The culture is important. But otherwise, if culture is not there, you can't win anything. They say culture is strategy for words,
agree,
So that's the whole point.
And you've said that many times, leadership. And I think so. The slight comparison between Tottenham and Arsenal there is when Tottenham were nearly there. I'd say is the difference that Tottenham had Daniel Levy where Arsenal haven't, i.e. they've got someone who's not prepared to spend that extra bit to take them over the line. Where this season, it appears, And I would say out of everyone's transfer window, Arsenal's transfer window has been the best. They have added real quality depth to their team.
Yeah.
And every single one of their transfers so far has done it. So much so that despite all these injuries, they've slotted straight into the team and they've just kind of like, let's carry on.
100%. They can't, and this is where I think that's where the lack of excuse will come from. But you're absolutely right, and this was the big frustration with Enoch as a whole, and Daniel Levy more so because he was the face of Enoch, was that at those moments, after we got to the Champions League semi-final, and lost under Harry Redknapp, we lost to Madrid. Right, we wanted to go again. We were second at that point. He wanted, it's quite common knowledge now that he wanted Luis Suarez and Gary Cahill to sign, and they were the deals that were being pushed along, but they were too expensive. So he got Louis Saha and Ryan Nelson, and the rest is history. It happened again after the 2019 Champions League final. It was then to push on. Actually, what happened is we didn't sign a player for a year. And that's where those frustrations have come from, and where the hope comes from now is, and a lot of the communications from the Lewis family now, from the Lewis children. I say children; they're in their 50s, but the children of Joe Lewis. They've basically been. The message has basically said, look, we were kind of involved, but Daniel Levy was a major shareholder. He owned 30% of Enoch, and he was entrusted to run the club. Actually, now we've decided, he's done a great job commercially, but on the pitch it's not enough. Away you go. Actually, we're Tottenham fans and have been forever. Like, we want to give it a really good go now. Let's go for it. That's the messaging. Whether that happens or not, let's see. We've just had £100 million of capital placed into the club.
They just said that, haven't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so interesting. Listen to your last podcast. 100 million. So again, that was nice insight actually. So 100 million doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to buy one player for 100 million. You probably end up spending 100 million on like 5 players, but with the down payment, and then phase it out over the 5 years. So that's a big. That's a big.
What Flav is really good at on the pod, particularly in the last recent years. So, like I said, the lab is very little to do with me. It's all Flav. It's all his baby from that. And what Flav has done really well on these types of on the podcast that comes through there is trying to not explain, but just to a normal kind of football fans kind of understanding without having to go too much into finance and stuff like that, like the type of roles that we do every day, Amit, for example. Like, no, people don't want to go into that. But what it does mean is that, you're absolutely right. That 100 million quid really is not like, can we buy 2 50 million pound players? That's not how it works. Essentially, what happens now is that you go and buy, let's say, a 60 million pound player, but actually it's only 20 million quid that you pay out of that. Then the rest of it is on installments, and it's done through amortization, and it's worked out actually how much that player is going to be worth over that period of time. And that's where the excitement comes in, because we've got Champions League football now, and hopefully we'll still be in contention for the next stage when it comes to January. And you can attract those sorts of players. So look, there's hope, and there's going to be some progress. But as ever, it's Tottenham, so let's see what bomb goes off to make it not happen this time.
I remember the Wenger's
talking to you
end days. Sorry, I just want to say, Alex, what you just mentioned. I remembered Wenger's last days. When we went to buy players, but we bought all those rubbish players as well. So that was the end of him as well. So
it's been great, Alex, kind of getting some insight from kind of life as a Tottenham fan and some of the bits behind, and some of the questions I had about Daniel Levy you kind of raised. And I actually made a very controversial point that I felt when United were really bad early on this season, that he actually would be a good chairman for Manchester United, because he really would get the house in order. I didn't get much any
send
abuse.
Him, Alex. Send him.
Do you know what? He, on a commercial, United wouldn't need him, because on a commercial level, Tottenham actually hired the commercial team. I think it was 4 out of the 7 the highest commercial team members from Manchester United were actually hired by Tottenham in the last 18 months. Daniel, on a commercial level, like, absolutely no way. Where I think Daniel Levy would be fantastic is CEO of the Premier League. So when Who is it?
Oh, negotiated, bloody hell. He ain't going to
yeah.
get... He'll be
But
squeezing the
what
pips
what
out of
Daniel
that, wouldn't
Levy
he?
will do, and I think there have been, what we've heard is that actually he'd be quite a popular choice to run the Premier League. And what he'd be great at is that what we've got to remember now, we are at 13 clubs owned by American owners right now.
Yeah.
As soon as it goes to 14, which it will happen, and we might be the next ones that go into an American consortium or whatever it might be. As soon as it goes to 14, there is majority voting rights for American-owned football clubs that will naturally have some American viewer biased interest.
Yeah.
And we've just seen La Liga have to cancel their kind of exhibition game that they were going to be playing in America. Obviously, we've got NFL games over here. The plan will be that there will be some Premier League games that start happening outside of this country.
In America.
And what Daniel Levy would do is I think he would either make sure that is protected, or if it does happen, that it is for the most exorbitant amount of money that you could possibly imagine, which obviously will benefit the game as well, depending on which side you fall. But yeah, that's where I think in time, I think that's where you'll see him end up.
Good. So let's quickly talk about the games. So what was your kind of, Ajay, how did you feel about United game at Tottenham?
Well, I just wanted to ask a question with Alex, because we talked about leadership and we talked about, the styles of the manager. With Thomas Frank, getting he didn't get the handshake, or he got kind of snubbed away by, I think it was at Spence and Mickey van der Ven. And I know you guys were talking about that on the lab. Does that kind of show a little bit of maybe he was losing the faith in the squad, or were they not happy with maybe his tactical changes, or maybe his managerial style? I mean, what did that kind of, how would you have read that situation as a fan, and how did that look for Thomas Frank?
It didn't look good. Yeah. And the noise I made when I saw it and put it into the WhatsApp group was, I think my exact noise was, "Ooh, that's not good." Yeah. And
would someone like
Poch, to tell really, because
what I would say is, would someone like
responded
Poch
to it like an adult?
Let them start.
Say what you wanted differently from Ange.
Yeah, what was I saying? Somebody like Ange, someone like Jose Mourinho, someone like Pochettino. Would Mickey van der Ven and Spence be in your next starting 11? Would they have put them in, or would they have got a grilling in the dressing room? Because do you think maybe Thomas Frank's a bit too nice, and can he manage these big egos compared to Brentford?
Perhaps, and that's going to be part of that's going to be part of the test, I think. And one of my few worries has been there will be times and situations where his mindset will automatically be we are up against a bigger club. He had that Brentford mindset rather than a Tottenham mindset, right? So in terms of the players, I was a bit like, it doesn't look great, but that Chelsea game was awful. Really, 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 really bad. And I think now, in hindsight, it's probably just players like, I don't want to go and clap the fans. I'm embarrassed.
Frustrations.
Just get me out of here. I think in terms of the game on Saturday, I thought we started the better. I thought then after the goal, we kind of faded a little bit and started to panic again a little bit. And then I thought the first 20, 25 minutes of the second half, Tottenham were absolutely awful. And then started to pick up and stuff again. And that's very much what we've seen in terms of these cyclical sorts of periods of Tottenham's play.
I think one thing
United were quite... I thought United popped it around quite nicely, actually, at times. I was relatively impressed.
I think one thing that I'll actually give Thomas Frank credit for was a downside to what Ruben Amorim did, were the substitutions. I think the substitutions worked better for Thomas Frank and worse for Ruben Amorim. Because if you had a look at maybe the way that the attacking styles were for Tottenham, you kind of tried to play a lot on the right wing. And we had luckily quite good defence in Dorgu and Shaw, who were man-marking Tell, and I think it was... who's your right winger?
Johnson.
Johnson, yeah. So we kind of put him quite quiet. But then as soon as we took Mazraoui off and put Ahmad as left wing back and moving Mbeumo back as well, you guys were targeting our right-hand side a lot more. And that's where you got quite a lot of success from.
I think it happened a little bit by accident, because when Odebear came on, he's just a bit more... he just will carry the ball a little bit more. So I think that kind of happened a little bit by accident. But I think what you saw there on Saturday were two teams that are, are obviously still in, I say transition, but
yeah,
are learning, about how this system works and what they do in these scenarios and what they do in that scenario. It wasn't, bar the last kind of 10 minutes, it wasn't the best game in the world, was it?
But the most strange thing is, though, whoever won that game would have ended up second, considering how
exactly.
Considering how unhappy both sets of fans have been with the teams for whatever reason this year. We could have ended up second. That's the most amazing thing.
But do you know what it was? It was, from after the Chelsea game, obviously the Copenhagen game was great for Spurs, but let's face it, they were toilet. Copenhagen, they were really, really rubbish. But what looked good against the United game was actually, we had 10 attempts on goal, 6 on target. Had an XG of 1, which I don't put a huge amount of stock in XG, but when you're watching games previously,
we can't even get that as well.
We can't even get like 0.5.
It's a stat for having the sake of having a stat.
But United had 2 shots on target and scored both. That won't happen all the time. So I think if we keep going the way that we're going, I think we'll be all right. But it was a much better performance for Tottenham, and I feel that we're going in the right direction. And I think United probably are going in the right direction as well, as you should be though, for a fully fit squad with a week to prepare every week. I'd be worried if it was
that was my point, Alex. These guys got one full week to prepare.
No, it's true.
No, but sometimes when you play,
the good thing for me as a United fan. Go on, Ajay. Sorry.
I was say that when you're playing, only once a week, sometimes it can actually not work productive for players. Sometimes we've seen where players playing midweek, they're on good form, they've got the energy levels up, and they can kind of compete. United did that in the past when we were in 3-4 competitions at a time. So sometimes only just playing once a week, it might not work always the best for players. Sometimes they might need that playing time because they're built for that. These players are built for Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, as well as playing on a Saturday and a Sunday as well. So but that might have also.
That's probably why we haven't got injuries, because there's lack of fatigue. Our body's not under strain compared to the likes of kind of Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham, etc. I mean, for me as a United fan, I thought disappointed to lose 2 quick goals again, second week in a row. But again, like against Forest, I was pleased that we were able to get the draw, where a few weeks ago we probably would have ended up losing the game 3-1 rather than drawing 2-2. So on that front, I suppose it was pleasing. So well, we move on. Come on, Rohit.
No, I was just thinking. When Richarlison scores, he always takes his shirt off. Every time he takes his shirt off, opposition scores. You should tell him, don't take your shirt off.
I think that happened at Liverpool, didn't it?
They won 4-3 that time. Yeah.
He was getting a lot of grief, and he gets a lot of grief because the performance isn't up to it. I mean, he started the season so well. Like obviously the Burnley game, scored 2 unbelievable finishes. But nothing sticks to him, and I just think he's a very emotional guy. Like he
very
he
emotional,
is. He talked,
very emotional.
And he talked. He talked last year. He had some pretty well documented kind of public battles. Mental health issues and that type of stuff. He's just an emotional guy. Like every time he ever comes off the pitch, like being subbed, it looks like it's the worst thing that's ever happened to him. And it was. I mean, you should be able to celebrate when you get what you think is a winner with 2 minutes to go. Like we shouldn't be conceded. So it wasn't that. The Richarlison one I thought was actually a really, really nice little flick header. I was really impressed with Tell's goal. Now I've been very vocal on our podcast of saying that I don't think Tell is good enough and we shouldn't have spent 30 million quid on him. But that finish was very Defoe-like, kind of taking it into his body, taking that step out, turning it and then just walloping it. All right, it took a deflection, but actually when you look at it, I think he probably would have gone in anyway. I think it probably would have gone down that bottom left-hand corner. But it reminded me of very Jermaine Defoe-like, that finish. I overall, I was kind of pleased. I think probably 2-2 was probably a fair result at the end of it.
As a neutral, I think it was a fair result as well. Yeah, as a neutral.
I think there's another 2-2 game. Arsenal. So Rohit, come on. We've spoken far too much about one of the clubs that you hate. 2 of the clubs you hate. So
no, I don't hate anyone.
A bit of airtime now as well.
I don't. Hate is a very, very tough word, but I don't hate anyone.
It's all friendly banter. So
yeah.
Sunderland versus Arsenal. Wow, what a game! I mean, Sunderland were absolutely amazing in the first half. I've not seen, not that I watch many Arsenal games because it is boring Arsenal, but they seem rustled. I think ruffled in the first half.
No, yeah, I think we weren't good in the first half, but second half we were amazing. We should have won the game, to be honest. We should have won the game. They had United had 2 shots on target, they scored 2 goals. Same, Sunderland had 2 shots on target, they scored 2 goals. And the last goal we conceded is Raya's fault, I believe. He should have come in, let Gabriel take care of it. He could have he could have caught the ball. He didn't have to come in. And what a finish! I know, what a finish. But it was a great game. Very, very passionate fans.
Yeah.
You could hear. I mean, second half, the way we came back, I was very impressed. But like I said in my Hindi one, but it was brilliant play from Sunderland. I think they deserve the draw. Definitely, they deserve.
You owe the Northeast an apology, because on our previous one we talked about the predictions. You said, there's Sunderland are the weaker of the Northeast teams in Teesside. That they're going to get rolled over. So you should show some respect.
But they're playing,
to Sunderland.
They're playing very well.
Jermaine Defoe's old team. Show some respect.
I've been really impressed with Sunderland. I watch a lot of Championship. Well. Yeah, I watch a lot of Championship football and League One football, and the way Sunderland have obviously had a very rocky kind of period of time. I mean, if anyone's not watched the Sunderland documentary on Netflix, I really recommend you do, because it just sums up everything about what being a football fan of a club that is not a top 4 kind of Premier League club is really all about. Like, the majority of the time it's horrible, and it's hard. And they have been through the ringer. But what Sunderland have done this year is the recruitment they made was really, really smart. I can't stand Granit Xhaka, but it was a great signing.
It was a great signing
for a promoted team like that. And I was amazed they got him.
Yeah.
I was amazed they got him. Yeah. And I think some of the others recruitment that they've made based
the
around...
goalie, he's been good.
Yeah, but where you can see they've done it is they've done it around athleticism, and they've done it around strength. So what they've said is, look, we might not have the quality necessary to win all of these games, but what won't happen is we won't be out for that. We'll make these teams fight with us hand in hand. And what begrudgingly was quite impressive about Arsenal in that second half is that, we've seen loads of Arsenal teams in the past kind of,
we would have struggled in the past.
Have their belly tickled within minutes of having a couple of rough tackles. That isn't happened. But that's where I've been really impressed with Sunderland. And basically now, bar an absolute disaster second half of the season, that's pretty much them done now. You can't be getting 19 points from 11 games and not staying up. They'll be fine. So their recruitment's been really, really clever. And I think it's what will keep them up is around that athleticism and that kind of toughness and that bit of streetwise, which I don't think Burnley have, and I think Leeds might Wolves? Be touch and go.
Yeah.
Well, I live in an area where it's all Wolves here, so us drawing with them, giving them the only point they kind of got all year, was not ideal. I really liked the Wolves.
You kept your hair safe.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I really liked the Wolves manager. I thought he did a great job when he came in at the end of last year, and he's probably been, the Tottenham last minute equaliser and probably one other late goal away from probably keeping his job in the whole kind of trajectory of that club kind of being okay at the minute. I really liked him. And I thought he was getting onto something. Exactly.
He lost some key players as well,
Yeah. But no, I think the 3 that go for me will be Wolves,
Leeds.
Will be Wolves, West Ham and Leeds, yeah.
Oh, you think West Ham
in terms of athleticism, Alex, when you're referring to that, I'm talking about running. I assume you're talking about running, are you?
But just, running, I think having those legs, having...
physicality.
Yeah, just like...
The reason why I'm saying that is it's not working well for Florian because he's got great running stats, but that's about all he's got, isn't he? So it's an internal joke between us 3 about him.
Oh, okay. Oh, if we meant Florian Wirtz, I was going to say.
Yeah, Florian Wirtz, yeah.
Yeah, literally. But that actually brings us on nicely to Liverpool. So obviously, Alex, what's your take on obviously Arne Slot? And we all had a discussion about the transfer window. We're saying Arsenal had a great one, but we all thought Liverpool's acquiring Isak deadline day, that they would just run away with the Premier League. They would actually fly. And obviously, they had the first 5 games, 15 points. We thought, yep, that's going to happen. But then October came, absolutely shambolic. The fullbacks have been kind of found out. Kerkez is not the player that he once was at Bournemouth. Frimpong and Wirtz not adapting to the Premier League. So what do you think has kind of, from your point of view, as the transfers, was it just too much of like a Galactico season where they've just kind of thought like Real Madrid and they bought too much?
I think, do you know what? And I was the same when they signed Isak. I was like, blimey, okay, that is that might. I mean, I was quite happy because obviously it guarantees. In my mind, I was like, well, it guarantees Arsenal don't win it. So I was kind of like, yeah, that's great.
That's what.
But we should all know better. We should all know better.
Because there's no guarantees in life.
Why we love this sport is because it's not linear. Like you don't just buy this, do that, and do that, and then you win. Like it doesn't happen like that. And I think I was absolutely blown away with what Arne Slot did last year. Because that is all people saying, it's Klopp's team and stuff, but that Klopp team didn't perform as well as it could the season before,
and they didn't win the league the year before. Yeah,
and I think the nature of the beast and the level of players that they've got is that it will come good and it will work itself out. But yeah, I mean, this is why this is what's great about football. Like, you can't just go out and spend that money. Or Arsenal seems to spend a lot of money and just got better. But there's been smart traditional recruitment, and it's not a dig because I wish Tottenham did it. But what Liverpool have done that is different is that this didn't feel like this is what Liverpool do. Like every time when they were making signings, like Kerkez, I was like, blimey, that's a decent signing. Frimpong, I was like, yeah, decent signing. Wirtz, I hadn't actually seen a huge amount of Wirtz, but you knew that he had that quality. And Isak, and it did all feel like very complementary type signings to what they already had.
Ekitike as well.
Ekitike played against us for Frankfurt last year, Europa League, and he scored a fantastic goal from the edge of the box, but he was almost head and shoulders the best player on the pitch last year. So why I felt confident was I didn't feel like it was a Galactico. I felt it was quite complementary to what they already had. But it just shows you that when everything has to be right to be able to team or win the league, that balance is so much there, and the smallest thing can then set that balance off.
Yeah, it's there is a thing called, right, when we call it forming, norming, storming. When something comes in or we add a player, it changes the whole dynamics. When we remove a player, it changes the whole dynamics. Teams go back to forming stage rather than when they were like really good and everything. Any player comes in, any player goes out, they're back to forming. Maybe it will take time for them to click, right?
And we can't forget, obviously, what has happened this summer.
Exactly. The context, exactly.
And from someone, I played football to a pretty high level, and I can't imagine what that dressing room must have been like. And I can't. So it's easy to get. And I'm not saying that will be. That's got nothing to do with kind of tactically type stuff. But it's gonna. And it's not one of those things that you can measure or say, oh, it's affected this by 10% or that by. It's just an effect across the club. And there's no underrated. It's not an excuse in inverted commas, but to think that it has no effect. It's just there. Like in the Liverpool kind of ecosystem.
And the thing
the atmosphere.
He wasn't like a second. Not that I'm belittling if he was, but at the end of the day, he was a first team player, and it's transpired that he was obviously very well liked and loved. You can see it from the emotion, kind of. Most of the players went to his wedding 10 days or so before. And obviously the effect he had on the team after that. You can see that. So, but I mean, that aside, and it's not a small thing to brush aside. They were bloody awful today.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm traveling, unfortunately, so I haven't seen the second half. But
I do not. I would rather Arsenal win the league than Liverpool have got 21.
Which I understand.
That's it.
But I think that goal, the goal they Van Dijk scored. I think there should have been a goal. The same goal.
Liverpool's goal.
No, the
All
same
their
goal
goals would be
against
offside.
Wolves. Against Wolves, Man City got the goal. It was exactly
'cause-
same. It was exactly same. You know.
Yeah, I mean, you see him get. I didn't have a massively strong opinion either way. I could see, so that's the same old thing. If that had been Tottenham, if we'd have scored that, I'd have been livid. It'd have been ruled out. But if it had been scored against us, I'd have been like, that's definitely not a goal. So,
but seeing referees'
But, I mean, they're still
performances
gonna
this
lose,
year,
though,
it's
won't they?
been
Let's be
pretty
honest,
awful.
though. Man City were brilliant.
Man City were brilliant. Yeah.
No, Haaland is a beast.
He is.
He missed the penalty.
Actually, talking about Man City though,
That's true.
the Haaland obviously is storming away with the goals, but still the Burnley player, he's still the second top goal scorer for Man City at the moment with the 2 goals he scored against them.
I think Tottenham's
Tottenham's
Tottenham's second biggest scorer is own goal, I think, so far this year as
Oh,
well.
is it?
So,
Is it? Oh, okay.
So
All
it's
these
a trending
bloody
theme at
set
the moment.
Yeah, but it was interesting actually because I remember we were talking at the beginning, and I said to one of our other co-hosts that was on here before that I feel that with all these new signings, Mohamed Salah is going to have a huge drop off, and would that affect the team negatively? And he said, "Well, you know what? Well, now we've got Isak, now we've got Etikite. He does not have to perform as much as he needs to. We'll still be okay." But I think that the opposite's kind of happened. And where, he is the star player of Liverpool. And I think if he drops off, the energy level or the tactical kind of makeup for Slot's team and his ideas also kind of falls through, because if he's not tracking back or not pressing as much, then, teams have been quite easy to play through Liverpool. So do you also feel like, obviously, as we talked about with Jota and the tragic, the tragedy that fulfilled that it plays on his mind a lot? Or is it just a case of maybe that it's just another season, he's had his contract renewed, and he's just not as hungry as he once was before? So
I don't buy the hunger. I know we see it a lot in terms of, they get the contract and then suddenly it's not quite as up there. But I don't believe that you can be the elite athlete that Salah is, who has the money. It's not like it was was a fringe player, then got his big contract. He's had big contracts. He's not short of cash. So I don't buy the hunger thing with them. I just think these seasons sneak up on people. When you might just lose that half a step. As just as you're getting older naturally. Like, we saw it with Sonny last year, where still playing kind of good and all right, but just that little step. And we've seen it with other people. I can only talk for Tottenham players, but we saw it with Vertonghen. We saw it with, unfortunately, mainly more just because of his body broke down. But with Moussa Dembele was arguably one of the best players I've ever seen live, ever.
Wow!
I've never seen a player. You listen to any other footballer that was playing in the Premier League whilst Dembele was at his peak at Fulham in his first couple of years at Tottenham. Every player you ever hear interviewed about who's the best player you've played with or against, they all say Moussa Dembele.
They will say Dembele.
All of them. Yeah. But he got to a point where you could just tell he just lost that yard. And I think that just happens, and it's obviously more evident when it's an attacking player such as him. But then saying that, he had the game against who did they play before, just after the last international break, the Brentford game, where I thought it was awful.
Yeah.
But then that goal that he scored
that one
in
goal,
the last couple of minutes, unbelievable. So I just think it's one of those things. Liverpool are going to go through a period now where I think we can pretty much count them at the league. I think the last time anyone won,
I think that's them out
Premier
now.
League with five games lost. I think the only team I can remember doing that was probably Fergie's last year. They lost 5 that year, United. I can't remember anyone else losing more than 5 and still winning it. So that's them probably out. And I just think they're going to have to, they'll probably have a really strong finish to the season. Because things will start to click, and then go from there. But yeah, I think my top 4 will be City, Arsenal, Liverpool, and then let's hope it's Tottenham.
That's a bit. Rohit's not happy. He's still not happy right now.
It'll be Arsenal, City, Liverpool.
I think Arsenal.
I'll give you United.
So what I find interesting, Liverpool, they've had 2 wins. They weren't overly impressive against Villa, but I thought they were quite impressive against Real Madrid, or Real Madrid failed to turn up. And after that game, Slot said the challenge he's got at the moment is managing multiple games for his players. So I understand the fact that, you know, he's had quite a bad run of form and he wanted to keep the same team. But by doing so, you know, did they put too much fatigue pressure on them? You know, and that's.
I mean, it's a bit strange that they were 3-0 down and chasing a game the whole afternoon, and Isak didn't come on at all, did he? I don't think.
But then he's probably not fully fit, so what's the point? Why would you risk it, I suppose?
Yeah, but I got a thing with this.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
How can you, as a professional athlete to his level, I mean, it's been, 7 weeks?
Yeah,
I mean, you should be fit by now. I know there's match fitness, but not to be fit enough not to be starting when you're the most expensive player.
I think he had an injury as well.
Yeah. He had another injury as well, though, I think.
At Frankfurt.
At
Frankfurt.
Yeah, I think he's had an injury since he's kind of joined Liverpool.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe then. Yeah. Okay. But still, not to come on today, I find that strange.
Yeah, I felt it strange as well. Could have given him some minutes. Right? They already lost the game. Could have seen how he plays. Yeah.
So I suppose, to sum up this week, what position are Tottenham at the moment, Alex?
We are fifth right now. Fifth, sorry.
Okay, so that's good. Fifth. Rohit, you're happy because Arsenal are top of the league.
Yeah, still top of the league.
Only 4 points though.
I'm semi happy because we're actually above Liverpool. I don't know why, because we've got the same goal difference. It's not even alphabetical, but who cares?
Spurs are fifth.
We're above
Spurs
them.
are fifth. Yeah, Sunderland fourth.
We're above them.
Yeah.
So it's been a monster of episodes. So thank you for listening, and thank you, Alex, for joining us.
Thank you, Alex.
Get you on again. Maybe when Arsenal play Tottenham, that'd be good. Please do like.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Yeah.
Depends on the result. I did actually say in our chat, I said actually, I don't want us to, as much as I would like us to win, I don't want us to hammer Tottenham because it'd be really uncomfortable to welcome our guests. I don't want to lose. I'll be sulking like a baby. So maybe a draw is a fair result. So I think in the spirit of kind of welcoming you on our podcast, the draw is probably the fairest result.
I think you're right.
Well, please do like, share, leave your comments. It's been great. A monster of an episode, as I said. So, well, the good news is you won't have to hear us as far as football's concerned for a while because there's an international break, but we look forward to kind of catching up with you as we preview match day 12 very soon. Until the next time, take care, guys.